Well, happy Midweek Wednesday. It is Wednesday, October the 14th, in the beautiful, sunny, historic city of Charleston. I'm Susan, and I'm glad to have these few moments with you today. First, to the family and friends of Bethel United Methodist Church. You are amazing. The ways that you are leaning forward, helping one another out, investing in the ministries of the church, continuing to care, support, love. You're amazing. I want to say a word about the way that you are particularly amazing in your generosity. You all fuel the ministry and mission of the church. Without you, we could not do what we're doing to touch lives and transform people and help earth look more like heaven. Those of you connected to the church no doubt have received a gratitude card. It is our small attempt in a year that's been unlike any other to make it possible for us to live within our means and to live faithfully in the coming year. The United Methodist Church has a way every fall of holding what they call a charge conference in non-United Methodist language. That's an annual checkup for the life of the church, and at that time we vote on officers, leaders in our different committees and roles for the coming year, and if we are ready, we set the budget. We set the pastor's salary, and then we set the total budget. So many of you, in fact 102 of you, have already turned in your gratitude card, and to date we have gifts of $477,000 and some change that 102 homes have contributed. Last year I think we had 160 gratitude cards, investors if you will, in the ministry and mission of the church. So if you've not had a chance to do that yet, we really would appreciate your thoughtful, prayerful commitment and gift that invest in the ministry of the church for 2021. We can't honestly and faithfully set a budget that we're going to be able to live within if we don't have all of our contributors and investors ready. So if you've been going, I need to do something about that, then drop this in the mail today. There was a self-addressed envelope, and put it in the mail. If you can't find it, then simply email the church office and your name and the level at which you would like to give for the coming year, and that will go into the other 102 investors who are fueling and funding the mission ministry of this great church we call Bethel. So I don't know how this now 7 months is for you, but I think when I look back on 2020, I will find it to be a very fertile time of growth, sort of that the soil of the soul kind of growth. It didn't come all at once. You know, sometimes you can only see things when you look over your shoulder, but I'm beginning to get a little more clarity on the work that God is doing in me in this time, and I hope you as well. I want to share with you one of the ways that I know that I'm growing and offer you possibility to grow too. Paula DRC is a faithful author, retreat leader, speaker. She often does things together with Richard Rohr, a Franciscan priest. Both of them are very generous in their love of God and their love of neighbor, and I find her to be a compelling voice. She told a story once, and I was listening to it again. It's different again how you could hear it one way in one part of your life and another in another part of your life. She tells the story of wanting to make sure body, mind, and spirit were aligned, doing the faith work, but also taking care of the body, that's the temple. And so she began to walk and then to do some speed walking, and then she was like, you know what, I think I'm going to do my first race. I think I'm really going to try for this 5K, which is about, 3.1 miles. And she was living in LA at the time. It was going to be a midnight run between Christmas and New Year's, and in LA in December it's still beautiful, and it was under a crescent moon, and she went and she prepared, and she said the race began, and she was going to run as much as she could, and she would walk when she needed to. It was her first race. She was going to be kind to herself. But she realized that as she was going towards the smokestacks, which was the turnaround point, that if she saw anybody else getting ahead of her, like, it really made her want to run faster. Like, I don't want them to beat me. Like, I want to do my part. I want to be my best. And she said, I was so aware of the people coming up from behind me, or the ones that I was able to pass, and she said those smokestacks, somebody just kept moving them, further and further down the beach. And she said, there's got to be something good that could come from all this way. My lungs are burning doing this race. Maybe there'll be a teaching or a metaphor somewhere along the way. She finally got to the smokestacks, turned around, and was coming back towards the finish line, the second half of the race. And she said it became clear to her that she wasn't going to be last. That she was going to run or walk and do what, but she wasn't going to be last. She just needed to run at her pace and do life as it came to her. And she said in that instance, she began to notice the crescent moon and the way the moon cast its light on the water, reflected there. And she looked at people, running and laughing, talking as they did. She said it was an enchanted world, that second half of the race. And she completed the race and felt, some sense of accomplishment. But she said that what she realized looking back was that for most of us, the first half of the race is spent very determined to make your mark. Very determined to, here's the goal, here's what I'm heading towards. I've got my sideways glance on who's coming up behind me or who I'm getting ahead of. It's part of the race. It's part of the life. And most of us do that for the first half of life. And then she said on the backside of that, it became not about that anymore. And she could take in the beauty of an enchanted world where God's glory was all around. And she really missed so much beauty the first half of the race. She pushed herself. She was driven by goals, the need to, but she said actually she had a better time in both ways. She had a better time, race time, the second half of the race. And she had a better time, sort of heart time, the second half of the race. I heard her tell that story, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't really think I got what she meant fully. She says both parts, first half of life, second half of life, are really important. You can't do one without the other. But the first half of life is really what you do. And then something comes along that you can't do anything about it. Something happens that is beyond your control. Maybe it's an illness, maybe you lose your job, maybe you lose a significant relationship, maybe there's a moral failure, any number of things that feel like they're beyond your control. And after that, the second half begins. And then it's not about being driven at all. It's not about the sideways glance at all. It's about the beauty that still is, the God that still is, you that still are. I get it now. I get it now. So, I want to invite you to a conversation about spirituality for the two halves of life. It is a book by Paula D'Arcy and Richard Rohr. Everything Belongs, I think is the name of it. But it's spirituality for the two halves of life. And I'd love to start that conversation. I'm going to offer 2 Bible studies. one here on site at the church at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. So, beautiful fall in Charleston. Let's gather outside in the courtyard. Bring your stadium chair, and let's just gather outside for an hour. I'll come prepared to facilitate conversation, teach a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit about this spirituality for the two halves of life, both of which are important. But I'll also do that at night, on Wednesday nights at 7, in a Zoom Bible study. So those of you who don't feel comfortable getting out yet, or who need to kind of keep your space safe, but want to engage in a conversation, that'll be Wednesday nights at 7. So if you'd like to be part of that, send me an email. Many of you have, we've been together on 2 different Bible studies during this time of pandemic, so let's do another one. You'll see information about it in the e-blast coming out tomorrow, Thursday. You'll see something about it in the bulletin this week, or you can simply email me and let me know if you want to be part of an on-site 1 o'clock on Wednesdays or an online 7 o'clock on Wednesdays. We will start that obviously not this week, but next week on next Wednesday the 28th. And we'll take this journey together. If you want to be a conversation partner along with me, I'd love that. So blessings to you as you run the race that is your life, and may you find whether your lungs are burning because you're working so hard, or whether the pace is much easier because you're taking it all in. May you find God there. May you know God there with you. I'll see you Sunday.